So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CrackGradeB CAIIB session. Now, just like how we completed a MCQ session with respect to compliance risk previously, today we'll move on to some different topic within the particular module, which is the compliance. Okay, so in this topic, in this session, we'll be discussing about risk-based internal audit framework. That is also a very critical aspect within the compliance module, compliance functions module. So in this session, not only we'll be understanding different concepts related to risk-based internal audit, and we'll also do some questions on the basis of that. Okay, so let's start with the risk-based internal audit framework, and then we'll be moving on towards the MCQs. Just give me a sec. Okay. So this concept is very much essential in context of compliance, compliance risk as well as the compliance functions of the banking sector. In this, the idea is, audit is the foundation of this idea. Internal audit, that means, the employees within, or there will be a particular management within the banking system that will be taking care of the internal audit aspect. So how does internal audit in general is different from risk-based internal audit? Because that is, until unless we understand the idea of risk-based internal audit, then we'll not be able to much better appreciate that how does it is different from internal audit per se. So internal audit is a very wide term that encompasses each and everything that must be done in accordance with the rules and regulations set by the board of directors or any other external reviewer. So just like audit function of any bank or any other organization, if done being internally, that is known as internal audit. But risk-based internal audit specifically focuses upon your processes that are managing those risks. In previous class, we've understood about different risks. For example, we've understood about annihilation risk in the previous class. Then we also read about legal risks. We've also read about business risks. We also read about strategic risks. So all these risks that a banking organization face or that a banking organization is exposed to needs to be dealt with, especially internally. So what does a bank board do? The bank board, for every risk, establishes a internal mechanism that can identify such kind of risks, that can develop mechanisms to mitigate those risks. So identification obviously involves various technical or other mechanisms via which you can identify the deviation within the existing processes, and the development team can adopt a controlled approach so as to mitigate such kind of errors. So the idea started from having an internal mechanism, which includes having internal processes, people for implementation of those processes, as well as having tech that can identify and implement this process. So the process which is helping you identify those risks as well as mitigating those risks, audit of such kind of processes is what is known as risk-based internal audit. So this framework not only not primarily focuses upon auditing risks, rather it audits how does your management of risk is being implemented fully or not. So that's what the idea is कि आपके कंपनी के अंदर जितने भी मैकेनिज्म्स हैं, प्रोसेसेस हैं जो आपके रिस्क को आइडेंटिफाई करके उसको खत्म कर सकते हैं, वो प्रोसेसेस ठीक चल रहे हैं कि नहीं चल रहे हैं. That is what the idea of risk based internal audit is. So I hope this is clear to everyone. It not focuses upon risk, rather management of risks. Management of risk is the core idea behind risk-based internal framework. It primarily focuses upon your mechanisms, that is managing those risks, and whether these processes, people and tech involved in such kind of processes are working properly or not, whether they are doing their responsibilities fully or not, whether they are able to help you mitigate those risks or not. So all this is the idea behind risk-based internal audit framework. So any confusion in this regard to anyone? If you have any question, any doubt with respect to this, feel free to put it in the comment section. We'll be able to reply you in a prompt manner. Is this clear? So I hope the idea is clear to all of you. And based on this idea, you will be able to much better understand that what will be objectives of risk-based audit framework is. You'll also be able to much better appreciate that how the internal framework will also be developed. For example, board of directors will be establishing different kind of internal mechanisms, and they'll also develop an audit framework in which they'll be establishing various institutions. For example, audit committee, internal head of internal audit. These people will be overseeing whether this internal mechanism is working properly or not, especially in context of risk-based internal audit framework. Okay, and now do the questions that I have brought in. Now you will be able to much better, if you even if you haven't have the knowledge with respect to whether any of the answer you know or not, by utilizing this knowledge you can at least extrapolate what will be the correct answer. So please try and do this question. The first question is, according to the RBI's circular on risk-based internal audit, who is primarily responsible for overseeing the internal audit function in the urban cooperative bank particularly? Okay, urban cooperative bank में किसकी responsibility है internal audit function को oversee करना? Again, be very critical and be very clear with respect to what the question is specifically asking you. मैंने आपको कल ही बताया था, Chief Compliance Officer is responsible for implementation of whether all the compliances are getting fulfilled or not, and overseeing that process was the responsibility of board of directors कि वो सही से काम कर रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं. तो उसी हिसाब से, उसी लॉजिक से अगर आप इस क्वेश्चन को भी देखेंगे, then you will be much better understand that implementation की responsibility तो head of internal audit की होगी, but overseeing की responsibility bank's board of directors. So naturally your answer will be A, bank's board of directors. Okay. So again, The responsibility, particularly in case of UCBs, we were asking. The answer is board. But if you see in case of NBFCs, either the board can take the responsibility or even audit committee can also take the responsibility for, again I'm saying, this is the key word, overseeing the internal audit function, not the responsibility per se. I hope this is clear. Now let's move on to the next question. Which among the following statement is incorrect with regards to RBI's circular on risk-based internal audit framework for NBFCs as well as UCBs? Again, when you face such kind of statement-based questions, you do not need to be scared or anything like that, because such questions are very much easier if you just understand or just find out any keyword or any factual data which the examiner can might change or tweak. ये बहुत आसान क्वेश्चन होते हैं, आप इन सबको बस पढ़ोगे अच्छे से, you'll be able to find out the option which you can easily eliminate. So try and do this question. I'll give you 1 minute for that. Hello. So if we see the first statement which says that the audit committee board shall approve a audit plan to determine the priorities of internal audit function. So again, this function we've already seen beforehand only कि board की responsibility है approve करना कि plan किस तरीके से रहेगा. Then the risk assessment of business and other function of the organization shall at the minimum be conducted on an annual basis. So such kind of things you need to be aware about. Every activity including the risk management shall be subjected to risk assessment by internal audit, correct? Because that is what the key idea of risk-based internal audit framework is. Then ACB should formulate and maintain a quality assurance. True. The quality assurance may include assessment of the internal audit function at least twice a year, which is incorrect because it is at least once a year. So that's what I'm trying to make you understand, that factual details have the high probability of getting incorrect, and it is based on the principle that it is most easiest to tweak. Descriptive statements को tweak करने के लिए मेहनत लगती है. They can tweak, but you all understand that most of the statements written in taken from the circulars are much more profound. ठीक है, तो वो आप पढ़ते समझ जाओगे कि ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज लिखी है या फिर किसी ह्यूमन ने लिखी है. So all those are the different tricks which you can also utilize in order to solve such kind of MCQs even if you do not know the answer. That's what the idea is. चलिए. Now if we move on to the next question, which is so the supervised entities basically all those entities which RBI regulates may prepare a risk audit matrix based on the magnitude and frequency of risk. The question asks you, the audit plan should not prioritize audit work to give greater attention to the areas of tell me, what do you think is the correct answer? Amongst all this option, which type of work should the audit plan not focus on? What do you think is the correct answer? What type of work? Again, it's a very logical question also. मतलब मैं आपसे बोलूं कि आपको कौन सा काम को प्रायोरिटी पे रखना है, तो you will be focusing upon, if you have a lot of work, so work which has high priority as well as high frequency, you'll be focusing on those kind of things at first, जिसका मैग्नीट्यूड भी कम है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल किसी रिस्क की वजह से आपको ज़्यादा लॉस होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, 1-2 रुपये का लॉस होगा, वेरी लो मैग्नीट्यूड एंड लो फ्रीक्वेंसी, और ज़्यादा लॉस होगा भी नहीं, पूरे साल भर में एक बार होगा, तो आप उस सारी चीज़ों पर फोकस थोड़ा करोगे. यू विल बी फोकसिंग ऑन दोज एरियाज, फॉर एग्जाम्पल जिसकी वजह से 1 लाख रुपए का नुकसान हो रहा है और हर सेकेंड हो रहा है, तो यू विल बी फोकसिंग ऑन दैट काइंड ऑफ रिस्क on a priority basis. So E will be the correct answer because this is the thing which you will not focus upon over these things. I hope you get my point. So in this case, if you see the explanation of the answer, that the supervised entities should focus on areas which have high magnitude and high frequency, high magnitude, medium frequency, high magnitude, low frequency. That means if anywhere this high and medium is coming, you should focus on that. I hope this is clear. Because anything high will definitely lead to a lot of losses for the bank, which anyways we do not want, because that may attract penalty from the Reserve Bank of India, because you have to comply with the various circulars provided by the Reserve Bank of India. Now let's move on to the next factual question. If you understood what's the framework, I've already told you that in order to perform risk-based internal audit functions, there must be some framework. That means who will be the responsible person who will be conducting such kind of things, or who you will be appointing over there, for how much tenure you will be appointing him or her over there. So all those things will be there. What is the minimum fixed tenure for appointment of head of internal audit, person responsible for implementing risk-based internal audit framework? So what do you think is the correct answer, or can be the correct answer? Yes, the correct answer is 3 years. It basically says कि अगर आप किसी भी पर्सन को हेड ऑफ इंटरनल ऑडिट बनाते हो, तो उसको कम से कम 3 साल का फिक्स्ड टेन्योर दीजिए. You can increase the tenure, but minimum fixed tenure should be 3 years. And this is the key idea which we need to take with respect to the person who is at the head of internal audit framework in terms of its implementation. Next question. Banks should segregate the credit entries outstanding for more than how many years in the inter-branch account and transfer them to a separate blocked account, which should be shown under other liabilities and provisions others. So not directly related to risk based, but sometimes you get bouncer questions like this also. So what do you think is the correct answer for this? So the correct answer over here is 5 years. Next is, any adjustment from the blocked account should be permitted only with the authorization of 2 officials, one of whom should be from the controlling head office if the amount exceeds 1 lakh rupees. Okay? Next question, directly related to the risk-based framework, which among the following is not one of the objectives of risk-based internal audit? Again, if you have understood the idea of risk-based internal audit, just read the statements and identify which does not go well with the main idea. So what do you think is the correct answer? Try and identify. So if you understand that how risk-based internal audit primarily focuses upon checking whether the processes responsible for management of risk is doing good or not, then you'll be able to identify the correct answers. You do not want to strengthen the control over the decisions of the board of directors. कह रहा इसका सेंस ही नहीं है. आप बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स के डिसीजंस को कंट्रोल कराने के लिए थोड़ा बनेगा. You have been instituted to identify deficiencies in control environment and monitor closure of action items. It is basically what? You identify whether there is any deficiencies or there are any deviations in your normal processes. And how do you address it? By having control mechanisms that can identify that somebody is doing deviation. And you have to reduce those things. So, responsible to verify whether there is any dereliction of duty, that somebody is doing their duty or not. Review the systems to ensure compliance with legal regulatory requirements, to verify whether there is any transgression of power at various operational. So all these things comes under audit portion. So if they are included in audit portions, so you could have easily connected it with the risk-based audit. So last case is directly related to operational risk aspect in the banking. D is related to ensuring that you are not exposed to the compliance risks. C is related to the people risk, and B is not related to any risk, or rather it is in fact like against the principle of separation of power. A board which has given you duties or which has given you authority, and you are restricting the authority of the board only. With what authority? So that statement doesn't make sense. So that was your answer, because the question asked the incorrect aspect of objectives of internal bank, internal audit. So all these are objectives. You can read it once again, which you can easily get it in the course of CAIIB provided by the CrackGradeB, which you can get it from here. Just go to crackgradeb.com. You will find CAIIB course over there. And these are just few questions which I am presenting to you. Now we have a lot of questions, especially in the course, and each set of different questions are developed as per topic, so that you get comprehensive understanding of the topic after you have read from the static details, which are also present in the course. Chaliye, let's do the next question. So RBI's risk-based internal audit framework is applicable to all non-deposit taking NBFCs with asset size of what and above. So this question you can do easily if you are aware of NBFC's scale-based regulation. If you are a banking aspirant or if you are regulatory body aspirant, तो आपको पता होगा कि scale-based regulation RBI ने जब निकाला था to classify NBFCs into 4 different layers. So NBFCs, base layer, upper layer, top layer, and medium layer. If you have an understanding with respect to this, you could easily solve this question. What do you think is the correct answer? Yes, the correct answer is B, 5,000 crore. NBFCs 5,000 crores does not come under base layer, वहां पर तो 1,000 crore के ऊपर वाले. Next question. RBI's risk-based internal audit framework is applicable on all UCBs having asset size of what and above. So basically जो ऊपर tier की UCBs हैं, and this also again you need to understand on the basis of UCBs टीयर बेस्ड क्लासिफिकेशन, जिसमें यूसीबीज को टीयर 1, 2, 3 एंड 4 में डिवाइड किया गया था ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ deposit size, isn't it? So here tier 1 had more than 10,000 crores, 1,000 crores, 100 crores, less than 100. So tell me, what do you think is the correct answer for this question? The correct answer, as you would have naturally thought about, basically the idea is we want all those institutions that have huge amount of money, especially of either stakeholders के अंदर सारे लोग आ जाते हैं, whether you are talking about depositors, whether you're talking about your stockholders, all those people money are very much important to be preserved or protected. So naturally they will be putting, or RBI will be putting a huge restrictions, or at least having huge mechanisms that can identify such kind of risks and prevent those institutions from getting exposed to such kind of risks. So any UCB having asset size of more than 500 crores need to install this RBI risk based internal audit. So this is another thing which you can easily remember. NBFCs के केस में 5,000 crores और UCBs के केस में 500 crores. Very much easier for you to remember. Okay. Next question. On which among the following is RBI's risk-based internal audit framework will be applicable? Again, very much important question. Please make sure that you remember all those things that we've learned earlier. उस basis पे बताइए. NBFCs के case में आपको बता ही दिया है. And I've already told you how much important for RBI it is to protect the interest of depositors as well as stockholders. So please think in that context and then tell me, what do you think on which risk-based internal audit framework will be applicable? As you can understand, that deposit taking NBFCs are having deposits of people. So inka to obviously they will be there to protect the interest of depositors. NBFC having asset size of 5,999 crores should come because we've just now understood that NBFC is having asset size of 5,000 crores, more than that, will be applicable. Core investment companies also will be there. And then we have salary earners UCBs. So these salary earners UCBs belongs to tier 1 UCB. Tier 1 less than 100 crores not applicable, क्योंकि 500 करोड़ वाला इस केस में हम लोगों ने देखा था. So these are the core idea. If you remember these numbers, you'll be able to do such kind of questions, application based questions. आपको बस वो numbers पता होने चाहिए. Then you identify whether it belongs to circular or not. Tell me, what is the incorrect about lines of defense against shocks? Basically, हर बैंक में एक you have different lines. कभी कोई contingency आई तो पहले ये देखेंगे, फिर ये देखेंगे, फिर ये देखेंगे, इससे एटलीस्ट you know the shock would be absorbed and it will not hamper the overall organization, just like how mangroves are. मैंग्रोव्स आप लोगों ने देखा होगा, है ना, क्यों हम लोग बोलते हैं उनको शॉक अब्जॉर्बर. तो if you imagine this is your coastline and if tsunami is coming from here with a huge force, think about two areas. Here we do not have mangroves, here we have mangroves. So the impact will remain the same over here. Here the impact will be reduced and it will absorb huge amount of shocks. Similarly, in banking areas also, for if you think this is a banking organization, we have different lines of defenses, so that if any contingency occurs, this will take care. Even if not, this will take care. And this is inherent in the risk-based internal audit framework. और उसी के basis पे आप बताइए कि what do you think is the correct answer for this question? तो आपने आंसर तो देख ही लिया, but again, please see. First line of defense is risk takers business. Second line, risk oversight. Third line, risk assurance, internal audit. So first line, क्या आप लोगों ने समझा? Basically, it says, the person who is taking risk, which is usually the board of directors, they'll make sure or they'll at least have an understanding कि अगर ये काम करेंगे तो ये रिस्क होगा, ये काम करेंगे तो ये रिस्क होगा, तो वो पहले से ही सोच के चल रहे हैं. कोई काम चालू हुआ नहीं, उससे पहले से ही सोच के चल रहे हैं. So at that particular point of time, if we are taking precautions, so that is our first line of defense. Okay, then second line of defense is your risk oversight, risk management and compliance. तो आपके जो internal systems हैं, which are responsible for taking care of identification of risks as well as mitigating those risks. So those systems becomes your second line of defense कि आपने जो decision लिया, अब उसके कारण अगर कोई deviation तो नहीं आ रहा है इधर उधर, या we are identifying that NPA थोड़ा बढ़ रहा है, so those systems become your second line of defense. Your third line of defense is your internal audit. So the internal audit sees your those systems which are responsible for your second line of defense. तो बेसिकली स्टेप बाय स्टेप प्रोसेस चल रहा है. आपके बोर्ड के डिसीजंस को रिस्क मिटिगेटिंग सिस्टम्स देख रहे हैं और रिस्क मिटिगेटिंग सिस्टम्स को इंटरनल ऑडिट फ्रेमवर्क देख रहा है. तो दिस मेक्स द ओवरऑल decision making process much more safe. I hope this is clear. So these are the three lines of defenses that is present in the banking system, which helps you identify or at least mitigate various risks that a bank can be exposed to. For example, compliance risk and other different types. So D is your answer. These are the three lines of defenses, not the fourth. बेसिकली उसमें लॉजिक भी लगाएंगे तो यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि फोर्थ वाले का तो कोई सेंस ही नहीं है. अब इंटरनल ऑडिट वाले को थोड़े सुपरवाइजर देखेंगे. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू ओवरसी एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज एंड प्रैक्टिसेस बाय द बैंक इज ऑफ. अगेन ओवरऑल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसकी रहती है? प्लीज टेल व्हाट डू यू थिंक इज द करेक्ट आंसर. What do you think is the correct answer for 12th? किसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड किस तरीके से होने चाहिए? तो सिंपल, ऑडिट कमिटी ऑफ द बोर्ड बी, they'll be establishing your policies with respect to how the accounting should be. Next and the last question for today, a resolution of the audit committee shall require affirmative votes of how many members in order to pass. Audit committee आपको पता है कि बोर्ड के मेंबरशिप से बनाई जाती है. अब उस कमिटी में कोई डिसीजन लेना है तो कितने मेंबर्स का रिक्वायरमेंट है, देन ओनली योर डिसीजन विल बी पास्ड. व्हाट डू यू थिंक इज द करेक्ट आंसर? Here the correct answer is 2/3 members. Until unless your resolution is approved by 2/3 members, your resolution will not be passed, and that is what the idea of audit committee of the board. Okay, so this is all for today from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment box. कोई भी इस पूरे chapter से related आपको issue लगे या कोई concept समझना आया, please do tell me in the comment box. I'll be much, I'll be ready to promptly reply to you. And for the course, you just go to CrackGradeB.com. You'll be able to find the course that will be having comprehensive material with respect to CAIIB, and apart from that you'll also get topic wise MCQs as well, so that आपको फिर और कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, एक ही डॉक्यूमेंट से आप पूरे मॉड्यूल्स खत्म कर सकते हो, because we are having exhaustive completion of all these topics, not only in terms of theory but also in terms of MCQ, and you'll get sessions like these also. So thank you all for joining. We'll meet in the next session with some different topic and MCQs of those things. Okay, so thank you.